Jameka, how are you feeling? You feeling ready to start?
Yeah.
Great.
Is Mr. Hinton here yet?
I don't think so, but I think we could
Okay.
do some welcoming remarks and get people
Yeah.
started on writing while we
Yeah,
wait for him
sure.
to arrive. Okay, that sounds great. I know people are coming in as we speak. In fact, it looks like people are coming in pretty fast and furious. So I'm going to wait another minute or so, and then I'm going to go ahead and start with a welcome.
Okay.
I'd like to give a shout out to so many writing project colleagues whose names are going by as you're logging in. It's so great to have this experience shared with all of you. I'm so glad that you're here. Feels a little bit, Jameka, like, I don't think you have your participant list up, but it feels a little bit like watching a popcorn popper and like, is it slowing down? Is it slowing down?
Well, I see. I think I'm going to delete that part, and I'll just focus on you three.
That sounds great. All right. It does look like that participation numbers are slowing down a little bit as people make their way from the viewing to the discussion. Hi, Emily. Did you want to tell us anything, or are you just joining us, ready to go?
Oh, now, just that headshot's a little weird. Yeah, let's give it another moment. I know Mr. Hinton is in touch.
Great.
All right. And it looks like maybe we've slowed a little.
It does. All right. Do you think we should start a slow roll, Emily, or you want to wait another minute?
I do. Yeah, why don't we go ahead?
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Tanya Baker, and I'm the Director of National Programs at the National Writing Project. And it is in that role that I have the great honor and privilege of working with organizations like the Kuhnhart Film Foundation to put together opportunities like this for teachers to learn and write and talk with each other as we work toward our shared vision of a future where every person is an accomplished writer and an engaged learner. So I want to start this evening by thanking Emily Keating and the Kuhnhart Film Foundation for reaching out to the National Writing Project and working with us to put together this screening and discussion today. Thank you, Emily. Second, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Over 500 people registered for this event, and we are grateful that so many of you are here. Many of you are here precisely because you are connected to the National Writing Project and a local writing project site. And for all of you, I'm going to ask your indulgence for a minute while I speak to everyone else who found their way to the screening today. If you were drawn to this event because of its content, but you're not familiar with the National Writing Project, we would really like to welcome you here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd also really encourage you to get to know the National Writing Project more if you are an educator interested in working and talking with other educators. The National Writing Project is a professional development network made up of 170 writing project sites, mostly on college campuses all around the United States. Those writing project sites are places where teachers write and learn together. They share their teaching practice, and they work to improve the teaching of writing in their local schools and communities. If you'd like to know more, please visit our website at nwp.org. And while you're there, you can sign up to receive our monthly newsletter to know more about the kind of events and work that are going on in the network. You can also follow the Writing Project on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and even join our Facebook community if you're interested in joining an ongoing conversation about teaching and writing. So thanks for that little public service announcement about the writing project. Now I'd like to jump into the reason that we're really here. I saw all of you streaming in from our screening to join a conversation about what we saw tonight. And I would like to introduce you to a colleague of mine who will moderate our conversation. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to an amazing teacher leader from the National Writing Project Network, Jameka Thomas. Jameka has been an educator for 20 years and is currently an assistant principal at Bessemer City Middle School. She's also the co-director of the Red Mountain Writing Project at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, where she's a PhD candidate in education studies in diverse populations. Jameka has served as a national leader in the National Writing Project as a member of the leadership team that has developed our College Career and Community Writers Program, known locally as C3WP. Any of those could be a great reason to invite Jameka to join us tonight as a moderator for our discussion. But I'd like to share one more. Near the end of True Justice, we hear Bryan Stevenson addressing a group of people at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. He says that he hopes that people who visit this sacred space will remember, be inspired, and have hope, courage, and faith. And that when they leave there, they will have grace and mercy and love to order their steps. The real reason that Jameka will be moderating our discussion tonight is that in her work, in her relationships, and in her faith, her steps are always ordered with grace and mercy and love. Jameka, as my colleague and my friend, I'd like to thank you for all that you are and all that you do in your school and in our network. Thank you for being our moderator for this important conversation tonight.
Thank you, Tanya, for such a great introduction. I am truly thankful to the National Writing Project for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to Emily Keating and the Coonhart Film Foundation for providing films to educators to use in their classrooms. Thank you to the College Career and Community Writers Program leadership team for guiding me in the art of student civil discourse and argumentative writing. I would also like to thank my local writing project, Red Mountain Writing Project at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and our fearless leader, Dr. Tanya Perry, for growing teacher leaders such as myself, for I am one of many. Tonight, we will start in our trusted national project fashion, writing as a group. While we won't be able to share these prompts in the webinar tonight, we would like to share them on social media with the hashtag #WriteNow. Again, that's hashtag WRITENOW, Write Now. Our writing prompt is as follows. In True Justice, Bryan Stevenson, a successful author and lawyer, spoke about his grandmother, and he talked about how she encouraged him to have confidence to believe in those things that he had not seen. How do Stevenson's grandmother's words inform the way you think about teaching and other work you do in the world? I will read that again. In True Justice, Bryan Stevenson, a successful author and lawyer, spoke about his grandmother, and he talked about how she encouraged him to have confidence to believe in those things that he had not seen. How do Stevenson's grandmother's words inform the way you think about teaching and other work you do in the world? You have 5 minutes to respond to the prompt.
Say something.
We have just about a minute left, just about a minute left in our writing. About 20 seconds. All right. I hope that you all were able to get some thoughts down as we looked at this scenario from or this quote from Mr. Stevenson. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Hinton. Mr. Anthony Ray Hinton walked out of Jefferson County Jail in Birmingham, Alabama, a free man for the first time in 30 years at 9:30 a.m. on Friday, April 3rd, 2015. The sun does shine, he said, as he was embraced by family and friends. One of the longest serving death row prisoners in Alabama history, and among the longest serving condemned prisoners to be freed after presenting evidence of innocence, Mr. Hinton was the 152nd person exonerated from death row since 1983. In 1985, 2 Birmingham area fast food restaurants were robbed, and the managers were fatally shot. There were no eyewitnesses or fingerprint evidence. Police had no suspects, and pressure to solve the murders grew as similar crimes continued. On July 25th, 1985, a restaurant in Bessemer was robbed and the manager was shot, but not seriously wounded. Mr. Hinton was arrested after the manager identified him from a photo lineup, even though he was working in a locked warehouse 15 miles away at the time of the crime. Mr. Hinton, 29 years old with no history of violent crime, steadfastly maintained his innocence. In 2014, the Supreme Court unanimously overturned his conviction based on his attorney's deficient representation, and a Jefferson County Circuit Court judge ordered a new trial. Mr. Hinton, I don't know if you realize that the same city in which the crime was committed in 1985 is the same city that I am from and currently serve as an assistant principal. I have to pass that restaurant every day as I go to work. And since reading your book, I think of you every time. I am so appreciative to have the opportunity to speak to you today. It is truly an honor.
The honor is mine likewise, and thank you for having me. And I hate that you have to pass by such a dark, dim place, but I've always believed that in darkness, one can truly bring light. And
yes,
so
sir.
It is a pleasure of mine to meet you as well. And as we say, home girl.
Hey, home girl, that's right. So, Mr. Hinton, we are going to have some people post some questions in the chat. I have about 2 questions that I'm going to start with first.
Okay.
But at this time, if there are anyone in our Zoom group who would like to post questions for Mr. Hinton or ask questions or have questions asked to him, please post them in the chat and then we will read as many as we can. All right. So Mr. Hinton, well, our first question. We just wrote about people influencing us to be confident. Do you have an instance in your life where someone helped to build confidence in you? Will you tell us about it?
Well, I was born to the best mother in the world, who I truly believe from the age of 4 instilled in me to believe in myself. And that would be the person that I truly believe that taught me life value lesson into, regardless of what anyone else think of you, it's what you think of yourself. And my mother was my inspiration to always look, regardless of how it raining, believe that the sun will shine. Also, my mom taught me that everybody won't like you nor love you, but I want you to learn to love everybody. And so even from a child, it was instilled in me to believe in myself, to believe in others when perhaps they wouldn't even believe in themselves. And so when I got to prison, unfortunately, I met Mr. Stevenson. He was another one that came through in my life and made me also believe, and I had to believe in him. And so it's not easy to believe in people, because as you travel through life, some of your own family, some of your closest friends will let you down. And one must ask themselves, how do I go on believing when the very soul that I love, that I trust, turned their back on me? And, you know, I want to say this as plain as I can say it. My mom brought me to believe in a justice system. My mom believed in, perhaps y'all is too young to know anything about the likes of Andy Griffins, and but my mom told me that anytime you wanted or was in trouble, find a police officer. He's your friend. And my mom believed that race had no place in this world. And she didn't say find a black policeman, find this type of police or woman. She said find a police officer and tell him that you lost, or tell him whatever you need. And so I believed in that. And then when you turn around and you become of age, the very people that you believe in are the very one that sticking you in the back, falsely accusing you of stuff. And one must ask themselves, how do I go on believing in something that I know is not real? But today, I am proud to say that I still believe in police officers. I believe they are some of the best people you could ever run into. I have to believe that because I believe in myself. And in order for me to believe in others, I believe that you have to also believe in others. And so, short answer, my mother taught me just to believe in myself, and I can accomplish anything, just give it all. And I do that every day of my life.
And you do really bring that out in your book. We could see and read and really feel the connection that you had with your mom throughout the book. So Mr. Hinton, you're in this group with 152 educators. And so you have their ear at this time. So before we take any questions from them, is there anything that you think that educators should know today to impact their students that they're going to have? Is there anything that you would like to tell them at this time?
Well, you know, I don't want to infringe on these educators that been to college and got their degrees, but I would love to just say to them, in everything you teach, always have common sense. And the thing that I think that I've learned since I've been home and talking to various young people is to allow them to express themselves. Do not assume, do not try to tell them what is best. Let them tell you. You know, it's kind of like my mom once told me, boy, if you want to make God laugh, tell him what you want to do.
Right.
So
That's
it's
right.
like, I would
That's
like
right.
to just tell teachers to allow their student to be who they are, to mold them in a way that they would accept that criticism, and I assure you they will learn from it and they will go on and teach. But just don't be a teacher that knows everything. Don't be a teacher that is my way or the highway. Be a teacher that is willing to listen. Be a teacher that is willing to guide. And I promise you, young people are smarter than we give them credit for. And they
That's
will
right.
listen to you if you go to them in the right manner. You know, I often have it since I've been home, and young people come up to me and say, Mr. Hinton, I think I'm gonna do this here and this is how I'm gonna do it. And I listen very patiently. And I would say, okay, now, do you mind if I gave you my opinion? And I want you to think about it very well. And once I tell them what I think, I say, now, which opinion or which idea sound best? And few of them really do say, Mr. Hinton, you know what? What you just said make more sense than what I said. I tried your way. And so I've learned there's a way to talk to young people and there's a way to get your point across, but you don't have to do it in a down, demeaning way. And so just learn to be patient and learn to listen to them.
Yes, sir. And I think that what you're saying really ties home into what we do at National Writing Project. When we think about teachers, we want the students to grapple with their own inquiry. You know, we're of inquiry mindset, where students bring their own knowledge and are able to grapple with some of those ideas that they have. So what you're saying falls right in line, Mr. Hinton, of what we've been preaching for years.
Okay.
So, all right. So we're going to start with our questions, okay? This is from Heather. You talked about in your book, a book club that you created. Did you write during your time in prison? Also, which books meant the most to you? What other books did your book club read? And she also says that you are such an inspirational human being. So in your book, The Sun Does Shine, you talked about this book club that you created. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, you know, death row is a glooming place. It's nothing ever good happened on death row. Today it's the same if it would be 6 months from now. And when you write people, they say, tell me something new. There's really nothing to tell on death row. You wake up every morning at the same time, you eat at the same time, you shower every other day. So there's really nothing if you've been told this to people. And so when I came out of that, I called a hibernation for 3 years when I wasn't talking to anyone. I realized even when I was on the street, I belonged to a book club, and books have always been to me a place so I could travel without the expense other than reading. And I often tell people, if you want to go to California and don't have the money, find a book that talks about California. And if you're able, take your mind and just imagine the wave or the beaches or whatever you want about California. And so one day I was sitting there, and death row is no different from population. You have inmates who want to destroy the place, who is mad and frustrated, and there was nothing for us to do but look up at the ceiling or go to sleep. You got to remind yourself that when I first got to death row, there was nothing allowed like a book. The only thing you could read was the Bible. And very few people on death row wanted to read about the Bible. Very few people wanted to hear about God. And so I know what books did for me when I was in the free world. And so I wrote the warden and I asked the warden, would he mind if I started my book club? Like any good warden, I would say that he thought we was up to something and we're trying to get something over. And so he called me to his office and he said, okay, Hinton, what y'all trying to get over on you? And I said, warden, I've been here now for about 6 years and I haven't given you 1 ounce of trouble. I said, and I thank God that I was brought up by a mother who believes in rules and regulations, so I have no problem following the rules. I said, but there's nothing for us to do. And so that's why the men's tear up the bed. That's why the men's tear up their toilets. And so they're frustrated. I said, but I think if you would allow me to have a book club where men could read and expand their mind, I think it would help. And I told him I wanted to start the book club with 14 men, but he wouldn't allow that many, but he thought about it. And if where you going to get these books from? And I said, my best friend Lester will go and buy them and send them to me. And I have him to send them to you so you can check them for country brand. And once you check them, you can send them to me, and I would pick the men that I would like to have. And that's how I started. And I picked 6 men. And one of the men that I definitely wanted to be in my book club was the Ku Klux Klansman. And the book that I chose for the reading without him knowing that I was definitely picking at him was James Baldwin, To Go Tell It on the Mountain. You see, this was a man that had been brought up to hate people of color. And this was a man that, a young boy that didn't even know we had black authors, that was black doctors, because his world revolved around white and white only. Yeah. And so when the books came, I gave him the books and I said, I want you to read the book. I want you to know that once you read the book, there is no wrong answer, there is no right answer. All I want you to do is tell me what you got from the book. You won't get the same thing as the guy next door and the guy down the. All of you should get something different. And so we read James Baldwin, and the guy, I hate to refer to him, the guy, but his name was Henry Francis Hayes. He wrote 6 pages in James Baldwin book. And he enjoyed the book more than anyone. Wow. And I knew then, not only was this book club was going to be successful, but I was making progress with him in the way that he had been programmed to think about people of color. And so the book club, we got in the library, we talked about the book, and everybody gave their opinion. And the next book, after we got through that, I wanted to read To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, I had read To Kill a Mockingbird in the free world, but I wanted those men to read To Kill a Mockingbird. I wanted every book that I chose, I wanted them to stay in reality with what the world was like. I didn't want to bring some fairy tales or something about a prince, just a frog, and this beautiful woman all of a sudden turned into a prince. I didn't want that for those men. I wanted you to see something real and read something real and show that it's okay to have an opinion, perhaps that don't match and coexist with your opinion. And so To Kill a Mockingbird registered with me more than anyone because I am Thomas. Yeah. And as I read that book, I said, wow. And I said it jokingly, 200 years this person wrote this book. And here I am today. I am exactly the person in this book. Wow. And so what I love more about the book club is that after a while, the book club guys would go back and tell other guys what they read, and you should read this book. And man, this book here, I'm just so happy. They seem to be energized, and they couldn't wait till the next book come in. And so one day, about, I would say a year, 2 years later, the warden called me, and he said, Anthony, I'm going to have to shut the book club down. And I said, Warden, wow, there haven't been any trouble. There's not been one argument. There's not been a fight. There's not been anything. He said, it's nothing like that. He said, you started out with 6 men. He said, 200 men is writing me. And he showed me the letters. Wow. I don't have a place where I can put 200 men to read and discuss book. And he said, since I can't pick out who to go and where not to go, I'm going to have to shut it down. And I often tell people in this, even in today's, I never known anything that shut down because it was successful. The book club was so successful, the warden shut it down. As they said in the South, who would have thought it?
Yeah, that's right.
The book accomplished everything that I thought it would. It opened up these men's mind. Yeah. And I want to say to the audience, right fast, if I can.
Yes, sir.
I was asking every man, Out of 200 men, only 5 of us had finished high school.
Mm.
And I got to wondering, is this perhaps why you are here? Now, I knew I was there for something I didn't do, but I never did lean on to the fact that I was innocent and they was guilty.
Yeah.
And so I went around and I asked, what grade did you drop out of high school? Out of 200 men, 5 of us had a high school diploma. Everybody else dropped out in the 7th and 8th grade.
Wow.
And I kept saying, how do you drop out in the 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah.
Don't your mother, what's your mother's name?
Yes.
And the answer that I was getting was, OG. My mama don't even know I'm not going to school.
Wow.
I said, but don't the principal or somebody come to the house and, OG, man, where you been? They don't care whether I'm coming to school or not. I'm just one person that they don't have to worry about. And it hit me for once and for all how important education is.
Yeah.
200 men and 94 of them didn't have nothing but a 7th grade education. And I kept wondering, how is it that we live in supposed to be the richest countries in the world, and yet we don't care nothing about our children to educate them? And when we start reading books, and when the prison start, even in prison, they don't want you to read. It's, you know, it's a shame, but I just think reading, and when those men, I wish I could explain to the audience, when they read a book, how proud they looked, how they walked with an upright about themselves. They felt like somebody, and they felt like now they can hold a conversation with another human being about something other than gangster rap and rap music.
Yes.
I don't mean to carry on, but
No.
the book club excite me, and I just think that if all we could do is get kids to read books, and if all this, what a wonderful world this would be for real.
Yeah. It's a freedom. It's a freedom in reading it. It really talks about what you said at the beginning, how when you read a book, you can travel anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
So and you can understand why it's almost parallel to why they didn't want slaves to read.
Yes.
Because there was a freedom in knowledge.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so there was a different attitude that came with that knowledge.
Exactly.
So yes, sir, I really thank you for that. We have another question from Elise. Mr. Hinton, your book is so powerful to read. What was it like to write it? What was it like? What was that journey like for you to write the book?
Well, let me first say that 30 years I was not allowed to keep a journal. And I have to say this, by the grace of God, he kept my mind intact so I could remember. What a lot of people don't know, if you was writing me, whether you my family or whoever, I only had 7 days to read that letter, and then the letter would have to be destroyed. If you sent me a book, I had 7 days to read that book. After 7 days, they would come and take that book, and that book would have to be destroyed. And so every time you would write something and try to put dates or whatever, they would come shake down and say, this is over 7 days, and they would throw it away. And so I had to come home and write a book from memories. And the justice system part was easy because Mr. Stevens and them had kept records, all the court procedures. And so that part was easy. But for me to remember names and date and stuff, and I just really took my time. And to be honest with you, it was the hardest thing I had to do. Because once I got out and I read letters that my mom had wrote one of my attorneys, and how
Yes, sir.
How my mom was begging this attorney to stay on the case and get her baby out of prison. And I learned from boxes that the lawyer had that my mom was taking her little Social Security check
Mm.
and giving him.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
when I learned that, I had to.
Yes.
I had to stop
Mm-hmm.
writing the book for about a week or two
Yeah.
because I could just. It didn't surprise me that my mother was fighting for me
Yes.
on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and she was taking her little Social Security check,
Yes, sir.
trying to pay a lawyer
Mm-hmm.
to stay on my case and get her baby home.
Mm.
And it didn't surprise me because I know what type of mother
Yeah.
I had.
You had.
But it just hurted me as her son to know that my mom was begging,
Mm.
somebody please help my baby.
Yes, sir.
And so when I got to the point where I was writing about her,
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't go any further for a while,
Yeah.
and I had to set
Too
it down.
much. Yes, sir.
I had to literally pray for strength because my mother is all I ever had.
Yes, sir.
And my mom was the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't ashamed of me. My mother was proud of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote this book in honor of my mother to show the world that my mother brought me up right.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And I wanted the world to see
Mm-hmm.
that my mother gave me enough love
Mm-hmm.
to last a lifetime
Mm-hmm.
and to give to others.
Yes, sir.
And it was a hard book to write, but it was a book that I wanted people to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to read it, and I want people to say, you know, this man went through hell,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow he was able to pick himself up.
Wow.
And if he can do it, I can do it.
Yes.
I wanted battered women to read this book.
Yes.
I am not my circumstances.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to read about how we are so asphyxiated with race in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted them to see that love is the only thing that will overcome hatred.
Yes.
And I didn't want nobody to hear about it. I wanted them to read it, and I wanted them to know who it was. And by writing about Henry, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted people to say, you know, I can do better.
Yeah.
I want to be better.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many emails and how many
Mm-hmm.
letters that I
Mm-hmm.
get from people all over the country saying, I am a better person today because I read your book.
Yes.
Made me see that I was born white and privileged. But I
Mm-hmm.
used my privilege the way that I should have.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted people to realize that we are where we are today because when something was going on that was wrong, you didn't have the courage to stand up.
Yeah.
And I wanted young people more than anybody to realize that it's okay to forgive
Yes.
because forgiveness is
Yes.
not a sign of weakness, but forgiveness is a sign of strength.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many people is living in a world where they just can't bring themselves to forgive somebody that did something to them 10 years, 50 years.
Yeah.
My book is to let it go
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness is not about that other person. Forgiveness is about you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote this book hoping that I would cover every woman, every man of every race, that no matter how you feel about anything, you can read this book and you can find something in it that
Mm-hmm.
makes you laugh,
Yeah.
make you cry, Makes you say to yourself, after reading this book, I have decided to be a better human being.
Yeah.
And so, that's the way I was brought up by my mom. And so it was the hardest thing to do. But through faith and through trying to introduce my mother to the world, it took about 1.5 years and I finally completed it. And I hope for those that read it, it touched them.
Yes, sir. It makes me think about something that you said in the documentary for True Justice. It says, I can't hate people. I think I decided to forgive.
Yes.
I can't stay in a prison after I leave here.
Absolutely.
And that really resounded with me because that hate is a prison that you walk around with every day, even though you think that you are free.
Absolutely. You know, it's I've had the privilege to come out of prison, and I met some movie stars. I met TV producers. I met Oprah Winfrey. I met people that perhaps I would have never met in my life. And I often tell people, had I came out with a revenge heart and a hatred heart, I wouldn't be able to enjoy the finer things in life. I wouldn't have never been able to enjoy my beloved Yankees baseball game. I wouldn't have been able to enjoy what a $15 hot dog tastes like.
Yeah, that's right.
I wouldn't have been able to enjoy playing basketball with George Clooney. I wouldn't have been able to enjoy going to England and visiting the Queen. I just want people to realize that when you have allowing your mind and heart to be full of hate, you are missing out on life. And nothing in this world is worth you missing out on having a good life. And if anything, if nothing else, I want people to realize truly the only way you can ever be free is that you have to forgive.
That's right.
And I wanted to be free.
Now, I see you got that Auburn shirt on. You free to go see those the War Eagle. War Eagle, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's something else we got in common, Mr. Hinton. War Eagle, I'm with you. Now, if I say that loud enough, my husband's going to have an issue because he's an Alabama fan. We have another question from Robert. He says, hello, Jameka and Mr. Hinton. I had the privilege to visit Alabama last year. One of the phrases you kept using over and over again in your book is, this is God's country. I found it was a sentiment that helped me to get through the book. It evoked forgiveness. Can you speak more about what you meant by God's country?
Well, I wanted people to, I'm often asked, after what Alabama did to you, why do you remain living in Alabama? And I have to be honest first with myself. I often tell people, yes, there were some white men got together and did this to me. But if I'm going to be truthful, some of the best people I ever met was white, and they live right here in Alabama.
Yeah.
And I have to be truthful that I want people to understand that regardless of what man think he owns, this world don't belong to him. This is God's creature. God created this world. And I have just as much right to live here in Alabama as anyone else. And I chose to come back because my mother, for the first time in her life, had her own house built. And when I came back, it was just about falling down. And through generous donation, I was able to rebuild this house. And I built it in a way that I was hoping that my mom would be proud. But I just wanted people to know that this is God's country. And you have a right to be wherever you want to be. You may not be welcome, but really understand this. You have a God-given right to live wherever you want to live. And don't never allow anyone to take that from you, because once you do, you're allowing people to take your freedom from you. And you're giving up too much power to the person that is trying to run you away from where you want to live. And so that's really what I meant about this is God country.
Yes. All right, we have one last question, Mr. Hinton. This is from Chavoye Brown. Mr. Hinton, first of all, thank you. I am a Black male English teacher. In my previous school district, I was the only Black male teacher in the entire school district. Now I'm in a new school district. Often, I feel like my colleagues aren't mindful of my voice, and I feel like it's because I'm a Black man. How can I continue to show them love, forgiveness, but also find purpose in my words as it pertains to the educational experiences of our students? Thank you, Mr. Brown.
What I would say to Mr. Brown is never stop being who you are. You know, they may not accept him, they may not respect him in a way, but you always respect the others. You know, I'm reminded of what my mother told me. She said, you are not responsible for how others treat you, but you are responsible for how you treat others. And so I would tell Mr. Brown, continue to treat them as human beings, continue to love them even though they don't want it, because he is not responsible for how they accept him or treat him. I would have him to believe that one day, I truly believe that they will come down and accept his love. They will respect him as who he is as a teacher. They will respect him as a Black man. But don't let that stop you from being who you are. Never be anything other than who you are. You can't, as much as you might want to change and say, well, okay, if I could do this, I often tell people, I wouldn't change what happened to me for anything. I learned from it, I grew from it, and I would tell Mr. Brown to learn from it. I would tell Mr. Brown, it gives him a reason now to go home and pray even harder. Yes. And I promise you, if anything, nothing else, take it to God in prayer and leave it there. I promise you, sun will shine for Mr. Brown and all the world.
That leads me to the last one. So many people are talking about in the chat about all of the things that are going on, and you kind of touched about it a little bit. What gives you hope in all of the things that we're seeing today? Racism, prejudice, discrimination, people and how they treat each other. What brings you hope in these times?
Well, let me say that you and I being from Alabama, we know the history of Alabama. And what gives me hope is the fact that you and I once lived in this state. We could even vote. You and I lived in a state that you and I could even ride the front of the bus. We once lived in a state that we couldn't even go in the front of a restaurant. We lived in a state where everything, you had your colored water fountain. But look what change brought. Look what margin, look what keep praying brought. So those are the things that gives me hope that at one time we went through something, but we kept on fighting for what we believe in. My advice to young people, I'm not with this looting, I'm not with this burning. I'm with you making a difference and believing that walking the street day and night will make a change. But I promise you this, if you truly want to make a change, make that change at the voting booth. Don't let your voting be in vain. Vote, make changes there. Never stop believing that tomorrow will be another day, and with tomorrow come changes. And realize that it won't come overnight. Sometimes you have to endure a season, but I promise you nothing ever stays the same. You're talking to a man who spent 30 years, who sometimes wanted to give up, but I know me. I know, as the songwriter said, there's a change coming. Believe that change is going to come. And you have to believe that what you're doing it not so much for yourself, but you're doing it for the next generation. They won't have to go through with what you're doing. So I would tell all the people that is marching for change and action for justice and action for fair treatment, you have a right to all of that. Don't let anyone determine that you can't do this, but do it in a way that you don't give your enemy any gasoline to put on you.
Yes. Now, whew, as we say in my church, now that's a word, Mr. Hinton. That's a word. Don't give the enemy any gas. That's right. Mr. Hinton, I want to say that I have been looking forward to this time for the last 2 weeks. When Tanya emailed me and said, hey, we want you to do this, I think if somebody would have just walked up to me, they probably would have put me in the asylum. I was just screaming and hollering all over the place because I was so excited to just talk to you. I just thank you so much. You talked about how you had to walk away from writing the book. Mr. Hinton, I had to walk away from reading it. I couldn't read it all the way because I not only saw you, I saw my family members. I have an uncle that's the same age as you. And as I heard you heard your words as I was reading it, I thought about my uncle. Yes. And if it wasn't but for the grace, it very well could have been him. Absolutely. And so I just really appreciate how you poured yourself into that book and how you are showing that the sun does shine. Absolutely. And that's one thing we have to think about. No matter how we feel, that sun's going to come up and it's going to go right back down. It's going to be another day, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Hinton.
Thank you. But you know, if anything for those young people that are listening, always remember every day will not be the day that you look forward to. And when you're having a bad day, do not sit around and have a pity party. Yes. Think positive. Believe in yourself. And I want to leave your audience with this. When I was on death row, the worst place I think anyone could imagine being, especially being there for something you didn't do. But what gave me hope was the fact that I realized that some woman was dealing with stage 5 breast cancer. I realized that some man was dealing with colon cancer, and the doctor had said, you only have a few weeks to live. Yes. And when I put that in my mind, I realized that here I was, 3 meals a day, a place to lay my head, and I kept asking myself, what do I have to be sitting here with a pity party? Those people that I just named would trade places with me in a heartbeat. Yes. And so I want young people to realize that every day is not the best day. Every day won't be your worst day, but I want you to rise up to the occasion, and I want you to make this world a better place. I want you to learn to love one another, share ideas with one another. And I often tell white America, we have more in common than you realize. If only we can just talk to one another. And even on the thing that we disagree, we don't disagree that far. And just learn to be honest with one another. And just let's learn to realize that we're only going to be in this world for a short period of time. Why do we continue to use the word hate? Because after a while, won't nothing be here but this world. All of us going to be gone. And so,
because the sun does shine.
I will witness to it. Yes, sir.
Yes, it does. We're going to turn it over to Emily at this time. Emily is going to close us out from the Kuhnhart Film Foundation.
One of my favorite.
So Mr. Hinton knows the Kuhnhart family well. Peter, George, and Teddy are a father and his 2 sons who directed this film. It's an amazing production company, not only because of the films that they produce, but because they made the decision 2 years ago to create a nonprofit entity that would make these films available to educators, to the public. We work with an amazing dynamic team, one of whom is on the call tonight out in Colorado, Fran Sterling from Blue Shift Education, to create lesson plans and a viewing guide, all available for free as well. And so when I reached out to Christina Cantrell at the National Writing Project with this idea to work together. She said yes. She introduced me to Tanya, who said yes. Jameka said yes. So thank you to all of you for making this possible. I feel my heart gets filled every time I get to hear you, Mr. Hinton, and just incredibly grateful for your story, your willingness to share your story. I just want to just say quickly to the educators, in case you don't know, the version of the film you saw tonight is what we call the cut down version. So it was about 52 minutes. There's a feature length version that is about 140 minutes that is available on YouTube. It's there, you'll find it quite easily. It also links from our website. I'm gonna put it into the chat right now. That's where the materials are. We are working on making this shorter version available on YouTube as well. In the meantime, I'm putting my email and you can contact me if you'd like this version. This nonprofit exists to get this film into classrooms. I also want to thank the person who shared the Amazon link to Mr. Hinton's book. That's also in the chat. And this is being recorded, and I would love to talk to Tanya and Jameka about how to make this available. I think I just know that all of you are thinking about your students during this conversation and also wanting them to hear these words. So I hope that we can figure something out with that. So Mr. Stevenson asks us to do the uncomfortable, inconvenient thing for justice. And I don't know where on the continuum of uncomfortable and inconvenient it was to join us tonight, but I know you made a choice to be here and to spend your time with us. And I think this is an amazing step. And if we can keep kind of taking this emotion and this empathy and driving it to action, the hope that Mr. Hinton talks about will come to be. So I thank you. Mr. Hinton, be well.
Be well. Thank you.
All of you be well, and more to come, I hope.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you all. Thank you, Emily.